Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyatela. Great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, what is behind this infighting between the top brass in the SAPS? What do the allegations that the police minister is being controlled by criminals mean for our state security and crime-fighting efforts? And what is President Cyril Ramaphosa going to do now that he's back home to intervene? We speak to SAPU General Secretary Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi saying about how these allegations and the infighting are affecting morale among police officers. And we speak to the Justice Minister as well, Mamoloko Kubai, about claims that some prosecutors and some in the judiciary are being controlled by criminals. We'll also hear from her what are some of her department's budget priorities. Also on the show, how is the South African government going to respond to the reciprocal tariffs announced by US President Donald Trump? Trump has slapped us with a 30% tariff. Does this spell the end of AGOA? I mean, over the last 2 decades or so, we enjoyed duty-free access to the US market through AGOA, but this may be it, the end of AGOA. So what is government's plan to cushion the most affected industries, and should it retaliate with tariffs? We'll speak to the Deputy Director General for Trade Branch at the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, Xolelwa Mlumbi Peter. And then later, Mary Phadi is no longer a member of the MK party or party leader in the Mpumalanga legislature for the organization. She lost her appeal in court today. She'll speak to us tonight. But first, my comment. So there are some concerns in the country about our security apparatus. What has unfolded since Sunday has left many South Africans worried about the credibility of our crime-fighting units, particularly the SAPS, and the stability and credibility of the SAPS leadership. And rightly so, we should all be concerned. We should all be concerned about what was alleged at that briefing on Sunday. The KZN Provincial Commissioner, General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, has made allegations against some top brass in the SAPS, including the Minister of Police. General Mkhwanazi accuses the Minister of being in cahoots with criminals. He accuses him of protecting them. He claims that they bankroll his political aspirations. The Minister says the claims are baseless and he'll be looking at what the General has said and then appropriate action will be considered. But here's part of what General Mkhwanazi alleged on Sunday.
Us, as people who are running on the ground, we have never given a presentation to the Minister of Police about the work, the successes that I presented of this political killing task team in this province. So for a decision to disband it, we are 100% sure after evidence collected that is informed by the work that they were doing in Gauteng, which the work they did in Gauteng was affecting the people that are closer to the people that are closer to our executive authority. So our investigation is going to be that wide. We're going to uncover anyone had a role to play. There are people that refer to themselves as whistleblowers. The strategy that is being used is to make sure that they taint the image of a person in a public space. They talk bad about you in a public space. For a member of parliament to come and talk about the procurement of facilities of crime intelligence, which is a covert thing, which is something that should not be in a public space, is not been questioned by anyone. The person who's accused understands that he cannot speak in public about it because it's a covert thing. If he speaks public about it, he's going to be facing a criminal offense himself. Now they're exploiting that gap, that we know this person can't speak, so let's speak and make him look bad.
So that's some of what the General Mkhwanazi alleged on Sunday. So in a nutshell, he says there are criminals basically who are controlling some of the top police officials, and he claims the police minister is bankrolled by a criminal who's been arrested. That the police minister took decisions like the disbanding of the political killings task team to benefit this criminal, because the special task force that investigated the political killings were uncovering some of the serious corruption in the SAPS and criminal syndicates. So he claims there's a crime syndicate here controlled by a drug cartel that involved politicians, law enforcement members, business people, prosecutors, and the judiciary. And these are wild claims, and we all hope that the allegations that the security agency has been captured will be investigated ASAP. Now, the Deputy National Commissioner, General Shadrack Sibiya, who was referred to as a criminal by General Mkhwanazi, had this to say, responding to the allegations.
There are big cases that I can point you out, including the AKA that he's talking about. I'm the one who was pushing it. He's talking about the AKA. I'm the one. In fact, he didn't want to arrest. I'm the one who arrested, who pushed for the arrest of AKA. So, and I can show you and I can prove to you about my involvement in the AKA matter. So I can tell you now, and I'm telling South Africa now, I am the one who was pushing for the arrest of AKA, not Mkhwanazi. That's what you must know.
I mean, we're sitting with a situation where very senior leaders in the SAPS are throwing allegations at each other publicly. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa is equally concerned about what's been happening. He says he's now attending to the matter.
It is a matter that I will be dealing with when I get home. I will need to look at it more closely and have a thoroughgoing discussion with a number of people, and thereafter there will be a clear way forward. This is not a matter that we should not give attention to. It is a serious matter. It has to do with the security of our people, but it also has to do with our adherence to the rule of law. The police play a critical role in enhancing the rule of law, the safety of South Africans, and that those who have done wrong should be dealt with, and should be dealt with thoroughly in terms of our constitution and our laws.
Yeah, now we have an SAPS that has been weak in some aspects in as far as crime fighting is concerned. There's a trust deficit that exists between the police and members of the public. We don't need this. This poses a serious threat to our national security. I mean, 2 weeks ago, there were reports of an imminent arrest of the country's top cop, the National Police Commissioner. It was splashed in newspapers. 2 weeks before that, we saw the arrest of the crime intelligence head, Dumisani Khumalo. He's now out on bail alongside some senior colleagues in the police. Weeks before then, there were rumors of an investigations against the KZN commissioner. So there's clearly a fight here in the SAPS, and we are the grass that is suffering as these elephants fight. So what would you like to see the president do? That's the question we're asking you tonight. How should the president handle this situation? What steps should he take to address the allegations of political interference and corruption within the South African Police Service's top brass? You can send us a WhatsApp voice note right now on 078-459-1897. Remember to tell us your name and surname and where you are sending that voice note from. And please keep it at 30 seconds. Alternatively, you can send us an X on @FaceTheNation @SABC. All right, let's stay on this story and bring in the South African Police Union's General Secretary, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, who joins us now via video link. Tebogo, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, Clement, and good evening to the viewers at home. Thanks for having Sabu.
Yeah, I imagine that, like many South Africans, you, as the police union, you are concerned about these allegations by the KZN Provincial Commissioner.
Look, Clement, we are not concerned, we are not surprised. As SAP, we have been calling this way long back, since the time of Minister Mthethwa. We even went to a CEC where the theme was politics have killed policy. It's high time the politicians must stop interfering with the police work. During the era of Mthethwa, the minister was fighting with the police commissioner. And every time when there are fights between the national commissioner and the politician, the national commissioners happens to be the casualties. During the time of Mbalula, regulations were amended so that the politicians wants to have a weight in the appointment of senior managers. Section 45, where it was amended so that any appointment should be in concurrence with the minister. Why? The ministers are not operational. During the time of Cele, everyone knows we couldn't even realize who a national commissioner because the politician was all over. Now is Mkhunu. We call on the president of the country to do justice to the South Africans and the police service and call order the politicians. We are calling on the president of the country to suspend the minister of the police. And we are unapologetic about that. There are 2 deputies who will assist. Because of every time when things like this happen, these allegations are very serious. They need to be investigated. So when they are investigated, I think it's a norm.
Yeah.
The person who's being investigated must step aside and allow the investigation without any interference. Look, I'm not representing General Mkhwanazi, but General Mkhwanazi is a seasoned police officer, a lieutenant general. He wouldn't walk up and go to media and raise these things on media. It means this thing is very serious, and we want the president of the country to take this matter seriously so as it was reported.
What is this doing to the morale in the police? I mean, clearly you've seen this coming as SAPU. There were reports of the National Police Commissioner's imminent arrest a few weeks ago. Before that, we saw the head of the crime intelligence being arrested at the airport together with other senior officers in the SAPS. And then months before that, there were claims or rumors that General Mkhwanazi would also be arrested or he was being investigated. What does this infighting do to the morale in the police?
The morale of the members is low. Clement, you'll remember that every time when the national commissioner is changed, you get a new commissioner. The system changes. New commissioners, new generals. So there is no stability. Every time when the system starts to stabilize, politicians interfere and the commissioners are being sacrificed. So the morale of the members is low because of, we believe as members, the minister could have went to parliament and fight for budget so that the salaries of the police should be more better. The minister should have went to parliament and fight for things that will better the conditions of the members. We don't have members need promotions now. Members are dying on a daily basis. We've been making call that the police killings should be declared treason. These are the things that should be done by the politician than to interfere with operations of crime.
Did you support the decision as SAPU to disband the political killings task team?
I mean, first of all, when you disband any unit, there were dockets that were going to court. What happens to those dockets? What happens to those who are supposed to account to court when you close units abruptly like that? And it's closed by a civilian. The minister is a civilian. We must not be shy to say that. Police officers are empowered by the Police Act to investigate crime. And police officers cannot get instructions from civilians because of they've got mandate and they've got a constitution to uphold.
Yeah.
So when you close a unit like that, where did you get the briefing that the unit is not performing? Abruptly like that. What happens to those doctors? What happens to the criminals? Ministers are not supposed to be operational. Ministers must step away from operational duties so that those who are appointed at the level must deal with crime in this country, and the criminals must be brought before the justice system.
What do you understand to have been the source of that decision? Because there's an argument that it was Net Joins that had taken the decision to see the establishment of that task team, and it was Net Joined, which includes the Minister of Police in there, together with other ministers like of Defense, Justice and others, who decided as Net Joins that that task team must be disbanded. So what I'm asking is, from your own understanding, was it only the Minister of Police who acted unilaterally here, or was it Net Joins, which would then mean this was sort of a cabinet decision?
Clement, I'm not so sure about the Net Joint. What I know is the National Commissioner is in charge of SAPS. The National Commissioner should be the one who pronounced the closure of that unit. Then we'll know the person who's responsible for the safety of the citizens of the country is the one who would close that unit. And he would know what to do when he closed that unit. I mean, General Mkhwanazi cannot just say that unit was working. And the command of General Mkhwanazi is the National Commissioner. So Lieutenant General knows that that unit was working. Civilian says that the unit was not working. Who's who here? Who's operational?
Did
Who
the
knows
national,
the facts?
did the
Who's
national,
investigating the criminals?
did the national commissioner not write a letter? Because Shadrach Sibia, at least from what I got, when he was on the SABC, the suggestion seems to be that, yes, an instruction comes from the minister, but it flows through to the national commissioner, who then sends a letter for the disbandment of this task team. Is there a suggestion here that the national commissioner wasn't involved at all in as far as this disbandment of the task team is concerned?
Clement, I'm not going to comment on the suggestion on the comment by General Sibia. I'm commenting on what I know must happen. Who's the commander of the SAPS? And I'm saying if the national commissioner is the one who pronounced the closure of that unit, I would say it was closed by the relevant person. But it was announced by the minister. That is the minister operational. Does the minister knows the dockets to court? What happens to those dockets? So we have been making this call, Clement, that politics have killed policing.
Yeah.
We even wonder if this ministry is really relevant in the police.
Yeah.
Because of the Police Act dictates that the National Commissioner report to the President of this country. Directly so. So the question is, do we really need ministers? We've got 3. 1 minister and 2 deputy. What are they doing? What is their role in the SAPS? If the National Commissioner reports direct to the President of the country.
Yeah.
So we'll also be open, let's open the discussions. What is the role of these ministers in the police? If the National Commissioner is reporting direct to the President of the country, empowered by the Police Act.
Yeah. So
Because they will never, at any stage,
Yeah.
give instructions to the National Commissioner according to the Police Act.
So what
They
do
don't
you,
have powers to do that.
So what do you think is at play here? Are you suggesting it's all politics? Because there's no question that the allegations made are serious and they must be tested, they must be investigated. But do you think that there are also politics involved here? I mean, there have been suggestions that this could have something to do with the race to replace the National Police Commissioner, Fani Masemola. As you've said, in the past, ministers who come in somehow want to have a National Police Commissioner who is aligned with them, so which then changes the entire system and causes that instability.
Look, we are unapologetic about this position that every time when things like this, the national commissioners become sacrificed, become the qualities. And we can quote, Bekele was fighting with General Sithole, who was sacrificed, General Sithole. And we wrote several letters to the President of the country, as SAPU, to say, can you intervene? Politics are killing policing here. We did not receive any response. When the minister left behind, Minister Taylor, he was all over, interfering even in crime scenes. No one spoke anything. It's high time the President of the country clearly gives the police their mandate and their powers, and the politicians, please, must stay on their lane. If I can make an example now, Clement, as we speak, the Northwest Province does not have a provincial commissioner. Why? Because of politicians have interest. The members went for interviews. Why can't people be appointed? Because of politicians have interest. They want their own person. Do they know the police? Have they worked with this incumbent? No. But why do they choose who they want? And it's a trend. If you have to appoint the provincial commissioners, it's a tug of war between the politicians and the national commissioner. As we speak, Northwest is leaderless. For how long? Post were freezed, crime intelligence. Who's attending to those matters? Politicians must stay in their lane. It's high time we call politicians to order and call the President of this country that politics have killed policing. We wrote letters as SAP, we're on record since the time of Mtetwa. Even on portfolio committee, we are on record We can go and check our submission there. No one is listening to us. Why? Are we afraid of politicians? Are we going to watch the country going down the drain because of politicians? SAP will say no. And the president of the country must do justice to the SAPS members.
Yeah.
Members need promotions. Members don't need what is happening now. Because if their leaders are frustrated, what happens to the members at ground level?
I mean,
so we really call on the president of the country to act on this matter expeditiously.
Part of the concern that's been raised by General Mkhwanazi is that there are criminals that are controlling these politicians that are overseeing politically the SAPS. I mean, there's a businessman who's been mentioned who received a 360 million rand tender. I think he's appearing in court soon. In fact, he's been arrested on other charges, and that tender has since been cancelled. But we're told 50 million rands has somehow been paid already, and that person is said to be linked to the police minister Senzo Mchunu, or at least to an associate of the police minister Brown Mokgotsi. But then there were reports also this morning that that same businessman who's been arrested actually owns a luxury apartment in Pretoria, where the former police minister Bheki Cele has stayed at that apartment. And the former police minister has confirmed that he did stay at that apartment, but he says he doesn't really know that gentleman. They only met this year. I mean, all of this is concerning, that you've got business people that somehow have these kind of links to ministers who are overseeing the SAPS, and these are people somehow who benefit from contracts from the SAPS.
Look, Clement, what was said by General Mkhwanazi, I'm not going to comment on that. He will have to explain to the president when the president comes in here. So whatever allegations that was raised by him, I'm also not representing his views. I'm representing the members of SAPU and the members of SAPS who now the morale is low of what is happening. And I'm also raising something that we know as SAPU, that we have been calling this thing of politics, that politics is destroying policing. As now it's clear evident, if a lieutenant general can go to media and cry to media to say politicians are interfering, we are vindicated as an organization here. So whatever he raised about who's involved, we are not involved there. We are not investigating criminals. We are representing members. So he will prove, but I don't think he will just hook up and go to media and raise things that he does not have proof.
Yeah, look, I am hoping that we will be able to speak to the National Police Commissioner as well, because I think there are so many questions that need to be answered. But also South Africans are looking for an assurance that they are protected and that our state security apparatus are not compromised. Tebogo Mogodi Singh, General Secretary at the South African Police Union. Dumela, thank you so much. Thank you so much for making time for us. Now, we've been asking you that question of what the president should do, right? What steps he should take to address allegations of political interference and corruption within the South African Police Service's top brass. Let's look at your tweets now. Musima Nerape says, the president must immediately suspend the minister pending thorough investigation into the allegations. We know our president is not very serious in tackling crime in the country. Won't be surprised if the matter is registered into history books. Alfie says the president should instruct the minister to step aside and let the law take its course. Then all involved should be arrested. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll start that conversation with the Minister of Justice, Mameloko Kubai. Stay with us. Welcome back. Justice and Constitutional Development Minister Mameloko Kubai will tomorrow deliver her department's annual budget vote speech before Parliament amid this controversy we've been talking about surrounding allegations made by the KZN Provincial Commissioner General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, who has claimed that some prosecutors and members of the judiciary are being controlled by criminals. The minister's budget is tomorrow, and she joins us now via video link. Minister, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, Clement, and good evening to your listeners and viewers.
I just want to start off with the comment I made today in the story we were leading with that really has concerned a lot of South Africans, and I'm sure yourselves as members of the executive are concerned as well, more so you as you are in the criminal justice system. These allegations that have been made by the KZN Provincial Commissioner.
No, definitely, Clement, we are worried, but I think as all of us would have seen the statement and heard the president as the head of state, whose powers in terms of running these departments are delegated. It is his powers that are delegated to us. He has requested all of us to exercise restraint, allow him space to deal with the matter, and be able to brief the nation and take the nation on what he has found or whatever that it is. So he has committed to dealing with this matter decisively and within the agency. And I think it's appropriate, Clement, for all of us to be able, especially those who are in departments, all of us who are within government, to allow the head of state to be able to deal with this matter.
But to be clear, you will be also focusing closely on the allegations that the police commissioner, the provincial commissioner made, that there is some crime syndicate controlled by a drug cartel that involves prosecutors and some members of the judiciary. Is that something you'll be zoning in, though, as the Justice Department?
Look, as we say, when you look at the issues, you need to get information. And because the head of state has said to us, we must exercise restraint. So I think we should be able to do that. He will do the investigation. He will instruct us on what needs to be done, because I don't think any of us should be immune from what he wants to do or investigate, so that we allow him that space, Clement. In my budget, I focus on building the capable state. We'll definitely deal with that. I've advocated for lifestyle audit for prosecutors. It's something that I've talked about since I arrived, and we are busy monitoring. I've received the first report in what NPA intends to do in terms of lifestyle audit. I will be accounting to Parliament in terms of the budget. What is it that we are doing? We will be talking about the issues of building capacity within NPA, ensuring that we've got prosecutors across. But also, one of the issues is about to say, every day we continue to do work. There are men and women who are actually loyal servants in the prosecutorial team. For example, we can look at today, we are monitoring the gender-based violence issues, how we are faring in our courts. Every day there's a case that has been successfully prosecuted and sentenced. We've got a traditional nurse who's been sentenced today to life on the basis of having committed crimes. So it's those things that we want to ensure that we build confidence in South Africans, that every day we are dealing with crime. I was here in Cape Town today, dealing with issues of maintenance, where you are finding people who are saying that we go to our courts, there are delays, I apply, sometimes threatened as a person, not finding this thing that is justice. Some of them are even alleging that there's sort of like a standard money that is paid on maintenance. So we went to deal with those issues, listening to our communities. What are their challenges in terms of access to justice, and where we can be able to improve? But more importantly, education, being able to educate our communities about the importance of compliance with the court, because we are finding many of them violating court orders and therefore ending up being arrested unnecessarily.
And speaking of that budget, I mean, there are a lot of competing priorities. So we probably are going to have a headache because there's so much that needs resources and there's not so much that's coming from National Treasury.
Definitely, Clement, there's so much that we need in the portfolio. For example, in terms of our budget bit application, for example, on infrastructure on courts, just to upgrade the courts where the ceilings are falling apart, the doors are not working properly, the aircons are not working, but where we need new courts. JP in Gauteng would say to us, if you look at the court in Soweto, you do not have enough capacities, full to capacity, you need 2 more courts to deal with that. JP in Northern Cape would say we're traveling a lot of distance, we need more new courts, magistrate courts, so that people don't travel long distance to access judiciary and to access the courts. So it's the global, it's the whole national issues that we need. And we made an application of about 1.6 billion for this year. and we were given 400. So we've got to do within that 400, but we are looking at mechanisms. For example, a PPPs where we can be able to draw in private sector that can come in and assist us in terms of the work that we need to do. Again, Clement, the issue of master's office. There's been an outcry about master's office in terms of just being able to provide the service. One of the issues, again, is in infrastructure. Some of our offices do not have backup generator, and we're looking at ensuring that this year all of them can receive backup generator or suitable buildings that will be able to service our people. So it's optimization of our services, ensuring efficiency within our service, but more so as well recruiting the right people. I've requested reprofiling of the people who are heading master's office across the country, because I think currently where we've positioned them together with state attorneys, we've put them lower. That's why we are not attracting the right people and with the right skills to be able to run these offices effectively. So some of the issues that we are highlighting are those. We are counting on the work that we have done in terms of the TRC implementation report, how far we are 31 years down the line, where are we and what is it that we still need to do in this financial year. We also are counting in terms of our work on gender-based violence. We're also highlighting the importance of transformation within the sector. You'd note that Norton Rose has taken us to court on the sector codes. And we're saying, Clement, this can't be 31 years down the line, a black woman who is a junior advocate, a young woman who wants to make it in this sector, battles to run an office, and the briefing patterns are not favoring that black woman. And that's why one of the issues that we're advocating for is emphasis around transformation and the need for transformation in the sector.
All right, so the president had made a big policy announcement recently about the judiciary being reconstituted to be independent in the same way as your, say, government or the legislature. When is that process expected to begin?
Yes, I did highlight that one, Clement, on the last budget. You note that there are two budgets that I delivered. Last week, I delivered the Office of the Chief Justice budget vote. Tomorrow is the department's one. During the budget vote of the Chief Justice last week, I did highlight the importance and the implementation process of the independence of the judiciary. We are looking at the end of August being able to present a report with the time frames of implementation. But what we are doing currently is transitional measures, where we are looking at the staff that is currently sitting under the Department of Justice that can be transferred to the Department of Office of the Chief Justice, the infrastructure building that needs to start moving, the legislation that needs to change, because you'll find, for example, on the Magistrate Act, instead of talking about the Chief Justice, it will talk about the minister. So those powers that would be moving from the minister to the Chief Justice in terms of making sure that we have single judiciary that is independent. It's not only independent, but single judiciary, starting from the lower courts to the superior courts.
All right, Justice Minister Mamuluku Kubai, thank you for making time for us. After the break, we're going to look at the 30% tariff that Donald Trump, the US president, has slapped on South Africa. What does that really mean for us? And should we be retaliating? What would be the consequences if we do retaliate? That's the conversation coming up with the Department of Trade and Industry. Stay with us here on Face the Nation. Welcome back. US President Donald Trump has posted a letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa on Truth Social, informing him that starting from the 1st of August, South Africa would be charged a tariff of 30% on any and all products sent into the United States. Delayed reciprocal tariffs, first announced in April, were due to go into effect on July 9th, but the pause has now been extended by a further 3 weeks. Trump also warned in the letter that were South Africa to raise tariffs on the United States, that this figure would be added on top of the 30%. For more on this, we're joined by the Deputy Director General for Trade Branch at the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, Kolelwa Mlumbi Peter, who joins us now via video link. Kolelwa, thank you so much for your time. Good evening.
Evening, Clement.
So 30%, hey? That's the tariff that the US president has imposed on South Africa come the 1st of August. I mean, this is no doubt devastating for us. It seems we are one of the worst affected countries. How bad is it looking?
Well, we will continue to engage with the US, but definitely the 30% will have a significant impact on our trade and the competitiveness of our products. That is why, as indicated by President Ramaphosa, we will continue engaging with the US diplomatically so that we can attempt to reduce the tariff to at least as close to the 10% as possible.
So this 30% tariff we have been slapped with, is it on all exports, just to be clear?
There are products that have been exempted by the US, especially the PGMs, as well as other critical minerals, as well as pharmaceutical products and energy products. So those continue to be exempted. And there are also other exports of South Africa that are subjected to different tariffs, such as, for example, the autos and auto parts are subjected to a 25% tariff due to the Section 232 duties that the US has implemented for national security purposes. And then steel and aluminium are subjected to a 50% tariff that is also implemented under Section 232. So there are a number of dispensations that our products will be subjected to. However, the rest of our exports, if we do not resolve the challenges with the US, will then be subjected to the 30% starting from the 1st of August.
I mean, the US is our second largest export market, if I'm not mistaken. Over the last 2 decades or so, we enjoyed duty-free access to the U.S. market through AGOA. Does this announcement by Trump spell the end of AGOA?
Effectively, AGOA countries continue to enjoy a margin of preference, but you are correct that we were subjected, well, in fact, our products were not subjected to any tariffs going into the US because we had 2 unilateral preference schemes that we used to export under, the first one being AGOA, and then the second one was the generalized systems of preferences. However, since the implementation of the reciprocal tariffs, from the 2nd of April, effectively that duty-free preferential scheme has now been nullified. However, the reciprocal tariffs are over and above the most favored nation tariff. But for AGOA beneficiary countries, the MFN or the WTO tariff is effectively, it continues to be waived.
Okay. How did the US actually calculate this 30%? I mean, they're saying that they calculated this by examining the trade deficit between other countries and the US, but that in itself is a contested interpretation, right? So is this 30% reciprocal tariff an accurate representation of available trade data?
Well, as you have rightly indicated, the reciprocal tariff and the formula that has been used is heavily contested, and it remains an issue that we are continuing to engage the US on. Because firstly, our average tariff in South Africa is around 7.6%. So if you look at a 30% tariff, it is really 4 times the average tariff that South Africa subjects US products to. Even if you look at the issue of the trade deficit, of course, there's always a contestation in terms of the actual, figure. But effectively, even if you look at that, the products that really contribute to our trade surplus with the US is mainly critical minerals, which the US has already exempted in terms of subjecting them to the tariff. Therefore, for us, it is a mystery why you would include in calculating the reciprocal tariffs the very products that the US has exempted. So there is an issue around the formula. However, regardless of the formula, it is clear that we have to engage with the US to find an amicable solution to the issue of the reciprocal tariff, because they will definitely have an impact on our competitiveness into the US market.
Speaking of our competitiveness, is there a plan by government to cushion the most affected industries? What options are available?
We are looking at a possible package to assist the industries that are heavily vulnerable to these reciprocal tariffs. Secondly, as indicated in the President's statement, we are working with the industry to look at the diversification efforts. And there are markets that we have identified across the world, also leveraging the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is a new agreement that is available, relatively untapped, that we believe our industry can remain competitive in and would need to explore. But also we have a number of trade agreements across the world that the industry can leverage in terms of its own diversification efforts. But also there is work that the DTIC is undertaking with the industry in terms of support in shifting some of the vulnerable sectors from exports into the US, into various markets. But of course, having said this, the US market remains a critical market, as you've indicated, and South Africa will do everything that it can to preserve that market for our products.
Yeah, I was about to say that, finding new markets for our exports is going to be important, and maybe looking at how we can penetrate perhaps markets within the BRICS bloc. And then I remembered that Donald Trump doesn't want you as the South African government to be aligned to BRICS. I mean, he says those who are aligned with BRICS, which he said BRICS is anti-American policies, will be slapped with a 10% tariff. Does this become part of our negotiations with the US, explaining our association with BRICS?
Well, I think as the President also indicated in his closeout interview during the BRICS summit, I think every country has a right to associate and affiliate with any grouping that it feels will advance its interests. And BRICS does not in any way aim to undermine U.S. interests. It's about a cooperation between emerging economies that are trying to advance their own interests in terms of ensuring that we boost amongst ourselves intra-BRICS trade and investments in ways that are mutually beneficial to BRICS countries, but not to anybody's detriment. So, of course, we will continue to engage with the U.S. in terms of what BRICS stands for, and that it is not intended in any way to really be anti-American, and it is not anti-American in any way.
Well, you have a very tough job of negotiating with the United States around these matters. Thank you for making time for us, and all the best. Xolelwa Mlumbi Peter is the Deputy Director General for Trade Branch at the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. Let's move to this now. The MK party has confirmed that it has moved its former Mpumalanga leader, Mary Phadi, from the party. It's removed her, and the Mpumalanga legislature party took the party to court, arguing that her membership was terminated without following due process. Her application to have her membership reversed was dismissed by the High Court in Mpumalanga today with costs. Phadi was the party's first leader in that province. She joins us now via video link. Mary, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, Clement. I've got flu. I'm hoping that you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. The court has now confirmed that your removal from both the MK party and the Mpumalanga provincial legislature is finalized. It looks like this is the end of your journey in the MK party.
Look, I'm happy with the ruling. I think one wanted to get the understanding as to why is MK saying that I should not be their member. And today it has been confirmed in court that it is because of the rally that was held on the 15th of February. So I think because of that reason, I'm happy that I'm not living with the dark cloud above me. I'm living with confidence because the ruling is saying I'm not a member based on the fact that MK party, we first paid a donation, and therefore they are saying I cannot prove that I'm a member, which is the court.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why today they took that verdict of saying, I'm not a member of Umkhonto weSizwe. So I am accepting that ruling.
How do you feel, Mary? I've spoken to you many times on the show. You've tried to fight to stay in the organization. You were one of the first leaders of the MK party in Mpumalanga. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the Mpumalanga province was the second best province after the elections. It performed second most after KwaZulu-Natal. So there was a lot of success in that province based on the work that you have done. How do you feel that you're now coming to the end of your journey with this party?
The inner me is happy because I wouldn't have met the ground forces that have supported me through the journey. I'm feeling that it was in my will to assist for the liberation of the people of Mpumalanga, and therefore, if Umkhonto weSizwe is not thankful for that by pushing and making sure that I'm not recognized or I don't become their member, for me is that I've got nothing to lose. Clement, I'm really excited because my dream of getting to understand what's going on the ground and the suffering of the poor and the challenges that members or the community has in the legislature or against the government has given me an opportunity to be able to engage on those matters. So I'm comfortable where I'm sitting. I don't owe anybody anything. I'm not guilty of doing anything besides calling a meeting. So it makes me excited to be fired at that level compared to the fact that today I could have been told that I've done something that is very terrible. It's exciting. I'm really excited today. For the first time, I walked out of court dancing to say at least the reasoning that I called the meeting is there compared to the reasoning of that I could have misused the funds the way they were portraying all along.
So what's your next move? You spoke about the ground forces. I mean, it's clear that you still have some support on the ground. Are we going to see some new party coming up being led by Mary Phadi?
Look, they've requested a meeting with me. A majority of Mpumalanga MK members are with my team. They follow our leaders, and therefore there's quite a number of them because the work that we've done on the ground it's massive. So the meeting that I'll be holding with those leaders that have requested a meeting with me, including the royal houses, they've requested a meeting with me. From there, okay, my engagement will be to convince them that they should stay with the party because I'm not ready yet to do anything. But I'll hear what they will be telling me, and I will hear what they will be saying to me. But I was not coming to Umkhonto weSizwe to steal members. I was coming to Umkhonto weSizwe to liberate and assist the vision that Umkhonto weSizwe has.
So to be clear, you haven't ruled out any possibility that should you be convinced by those ground forces, you may be swayed towards starting a political organization. You still want to hear them and consider. You haven't completely ruled that out.
No, I haven't, for the mere fact that you could see the tears of men and women that were standing next to that stage, and they came there with their money, they've paid for their own transport. We could see tears flowing on their faces. And on the other hand, for me, I was saying, I am happy, I'm fine. And, they were crying, and I'm not quite sure what is it when they are sitting with me, what is it that they would want to discuss with me, because I can assure you now, Clement, is that there is no following that any leader in the province has, besides the following that I had an opportunity to have in Mpumalanga, almost all members of Umkhonto weSizwe are really following my vision.
Yeah, and of course, if you're looking for a political home, there's always that other party that may be started by Floyd Shivambu.
I wouldn't go there. Clement, I wouldn't go there. I'll tell you why. We should be able to differentiate the reasoning. In my case, I did not leave Umkhonto weSizwe with bitterness to start something. I am told by the court that I'm not a member. So I did not betray anyone. I'm not a member. So because I'm not a member, I would not start based on something. I've got a problem with Maibuye, the other political party, because that political party was born out of no verdict of saying Comrade Floyd is not a member. But in my case, I am surely being told that I am not a member. So I'm a free bird.
Do you have any message for the leader of the MK party in Mpumalanga, Busisiwe Mkhwanazi? I mean, she has consistently been saying that you are no longer a leader. You've been consistently claiming that you're still a leader. And there's been just divisions on the ground between your supporters and her supporters who are MK supporters. Do you have a message for her? Will you be meeting with her? Is there an opportunity here to try and work with her in order to convince also those people on the ground who supported you to stay within the party and transfer that support to her as the legitimate leader of the MK party in Mpumalanga?
Look, my message to her is that I wish her the best, and I wouldn't go to the members and convince members, because members have followed me by what they see for me when I was supporting them on the ground. So I wouldn't go to the members and say, go and support this person. There are many leaders in the province that have been there with Umkhonto weSizwe. But what I'll be telling my followers is that it's not all lost. It's just that the difference is that Mary Phadi is not a member. But it doesn't mean that I have to sit down and convince people that don't become a member of a political party. It's not in my duty not to sleep at night. I want to sleep peacefully because I don't owe anyone anything.
All right. Mary Phadi, thank you so much for making time for us on Face the Nation tonight. I really appreciate it. Now, let's wrap up the show with some of the tweets that have come through responding to the question of what President Cyril Ramaphosa should do to address the allegations of political interference and corruption within the SAPS. Let's listen to some of the WhatsApp voice notes that have come through.
Sam Alekotrikopis Clement Dumela. The president must act and act swiftly. We are not even feeling safe in our own country. People who should be protecting us are the ones who are lining their pockets with bribes. I commend Mkhwanazi to have confrontationally broken the ice. Had he tried to follow the right channels, this might have been swept under the carpet in the name of comradeship. These people must be reverted. Bye-bye.
Yeah, good evening, South Africa. This is MK Nkale here in Pretoria, Yesterdays. My take is that the president should suspend the alleged implicated individuals and get to the bottom of this allegation and rescue our country as a matter of urgency. Thank you.
Clement, good afternoon. It's Mashudu here, Mashudu Matari from Cape Town in Paro. I think the president needs to put on suspension Senzo Mchunu, the Minister of Police, to allow the investigation to go smoothly, because if the guy is in the office, he's likely to tamper with the investigation. Thank you.
Thanks to you for watching the Tuesday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back with you on Thursday at 8 p.m. Have a good evening. Cheers.